We'll be looking more in depth into this decision by the Federal Executive Council, and I am joined by my guest, who is a public affairs analyst in the person of Chibuzor Okereke. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. I will want for you to. Good morning to you. Good morning, and good to have you on the program. I will want for you to begin by just hearing your thoughts or your opinion about the creation of the Ministry of Regional Development, rather than having these different development commissions like we previously did. You have heard comments from Nigerians and what your thoughts are, but what are your own personal opinions?
Well, first of all, as you would recall, the NDDC, which is the first supposedly regional development body, was established in year 2000, and until around 2016 or thereabout, we didn't have a special ministry to oversee that. It was actually domiciled under the presidency. Now, what is the role of a ministry? If you look at section 147, 148 of the Constitution, the ministries are simply policy promoters. They are simply advisors to president and then supervisors of technical agencies. Now, when we now have all these regional agencies for Southeast, Northwest, Northeast, and what have you, recall they are established by an act of the National Assembly, which means on their own right, they have budgetary allocation. And within their act, funding prescriptions has been made. For instance, some of them, a certain amount of money due from ecological fund due to the state, a percentage is taken to support them. Also federal government budgetary allocation and what have you, and other sources of fund that they can have. But in terms of strategy and managing cost of governance, one would have thought that probably these agencies would have been warehoused under the Ministry of Special Duties, because regional development has to, work with the state governors and local government to be able to achieve a region. If not, we'll be having a development planning crisis, whereby, like we see today with the NDDC, some governors, though advisory board members of the NDDC, continues to complain that the NDDC comes to their state and site project, road, school, what have you, that does not fit into their own strategic development plan. So connectivity, integration of roads is also very critical. But on the whole, the effort by the federal government to push for regional development is good. All we need to do is to make sure that the development planning is targeted on the competitive and comparative advantage of resources within each zone to be able to deal with that. We should not also forget that the South-South, we don't have any regional body now for South-South, because the NDDC has 3 other states, 2 from Southeast, 1 from Southwest, within the NDDC, making it 9. Yes, South-South state within the NDDC has dominant state of 6, but the focus of the NDDC is totally different from the regional agencies we are creating. So we still need to address what percentage of NDDC funding now should be devoted as a component of regional development, and what percentage is addressing oil producing states within that structure.
Very complex structure, like you rightly pointed out, and so many unanswered questions as well. But there's still so much more that will be coming to you. We still will be looking at, the road ahead for the Ministry of Regional Development, as we did see, the approval of the creation of that ministry at the conclusion of the FEC meeting from yesterday. Let's go now on a short break. When we return, the conversation continues. Do stay. Thank you very much for still staying with us. You're still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. And just before the break, we started a conversation proper, and we are looking at the recent approval for the creation of the Ministry of Regional Development by the Federal Executive Council at the conclusion of yesterday's meeting. And what that ministry will do is expected that it would oversee, all the regional development commissions, such as the Niger Delta Development Commission, the Northwest Development Commission, the Northeast Development Commission, as well as the Southwest Development Commission. We are, still analyzing and dissecting what this creation will do for, the national development and economic growth moving forward. And I still have my guest here with me, who is a public affairs analyst in the person of Chibuzor Okereke. Thank you again for coming on the program today.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like for you to continue your thought. You already did start, but I would like for you to talk regarding how this will address, region-specific challenges. Because when you look at the creation of the NDDC and all these other, commissions that we had seen in the past, they had some specific, specific needs that they were expected to address. And now we have, the ministry that is overseeing of this. But how do you foresee these, this ministry, still addressing concerns in specific areas?
Okay, so like I highlighted, if you look at section 148 of the Constitution, these ministries are responsible for, policy promotion, policy, and then advisory, supervisory role on agencies of government. And then, of course, they are also responsible for coordinating activities. Now, 24 years after the creation or establishment of NDDC, what is the assessment in terms of impact? Many people will tell you it has been abysmal. Since the ministry came on board to provide oversight on the NDDC, has there been any significant shift in terms of impact within the 9 states of the NDDC? There have been some movements, but people will tell you performance is still below expectation. When you compare it to the amount of money the IOCs is budgeted and then the direct budget from the government. Interestingly, the NDDC budget is also an independent budget. It's presented outside the period of normal federal budget. So because of that interest that the regional development within the Niger Delta state should be addressed, when you now expand the mandate of this ministry that have not been able to police the NDDC properly and enable them to deliver, you have to also make sure that the manpower there has the proper training and leadership skills to drive the process. And that is what is very critical here. Because now the president has invariably given nod to Southwest Development Commission that will soon come, already approved in the Senate. You've got the Northwest already done, Northeast, and then South is within the NDDC. So what do we need if we want to drive progress? Is that, remember in the 1960 to 66, Nigeria had regional system of government. We started with 3 regions. In 1963, during the Republican Constitution, we had the Midwestern region. Every single region in the country has resource competence, natural resource competence within an area. Some in agriculture, some in manufacturing, in blue economy, in finance, and what have you. This particular ministry now, their job must first of all draw a policy roadmap on how each region will be able to harness its competitive resource competence so that we can trade it both locally and for export. For me, that should be the focus, and maybe that is the thinking of the president in saying, oh no, let us, even though some of us argue that Ministry of Special Duties doesn't seem to have any portfolio of service activities.
And you seem to hold that opinion as well.
Yeah, I hold that opinion that maybe they should have done this, but because of the pressure and political pressure and the need to also pay attention to harnessing regional potentials, maybe having a ministry to do that. But I can tell you, in doing this, there has to be a governance approach that is a shift from what we have today. Because we have seen ministers who assume operational role instead of policy supervision role within their agencies. This is a problem. You are to go and argue policy proposal at the Federal Executive Council. You are to make sure you promote the policy that govern your area. You are to supervise the implementation of those policies. But the operationalization of the policies are meant for the technical people at the agencies. That's why outside the mentioning of ministries in the Constitution, every other agency has to be created by law, and qualification to be a chairman or DG of that are prescribed. But for minister, you just need to have the same qualification as that of House of Rep member. And what is the qualification? WAEC. So this should be understood. So we don't want a situation where, rather than having these regional bodies drive development, politics of bureaucracy trapped their fund and approval mechanism. So if a minister doesn't like DG of maybe Northwest Development Commission or anything, there will be a challenge in the funding that goes there. That is what we don't want to see. And the wisdom in domiciling NDDC with presidency at the start was for that purpose. Yeah.
You made a very interesting point, which I think I would like for you to emphasize more on. You know, you did mention concerns around accountability and oversight. You also did mention, you know, the NDDC, that is the Niger Delta Commission, which unfortunately, you know, has had cases around corruption in the past. So moving forward, what should be done differently to ensure, you know, accountability, to ensure transparency within the Regional Development Ministry?
Well, I think it's very simple. First, the political will. You see, if you create agencies of government and it's overtaken by political actors, it's populated by just politicians, you are going to have issues with delivering on the mandate of that agency. If there is no also clear-cut reporting system, accountability system, you are going to have people sit back in agencies, relax, wait for budget, spend budget, and simply don't account for anything. So there has to be clear vision, there has to be clear pathway in terms of deliverables. This is the mandate you have. For instance, all the newly created regional bodies with their management board having been appointed, you have between 6 months to 1 year to give us a holistic road map of strategic development plan of that region. Interestingly, also, and for the right reason, governors are advisory board members. So you consult with them, consult with the stakeholders. You should be able to consult with communities. If you are talking about road infrastructure, in the regional body, we should have all the roads listed in a dashboard. Each one, as you pick it into the budget, you know the remaining ones will be featured in the next budget year. So people can actually say, in the next 4 years, the road in my community will be making it to the budget. So without having a development plan system that carries people along in this manner, is difficult. And then the agency heads must be able to report quarterly. Even in NDDC, there is a provision in their act that they should present annual performance report to the president. That has not been happening. So implementation of our law, which aligns with also political will, is very critical. If not, we will end up praising the president for paying attention for regional development. At the end of the day, we'll discover that the agencies simply are repeating the same thing, nothing novel that is being done by local government, empowerment here and there, skills acquisition, sending people on scholarship. So and sometimes the people who benefited from the one HGA just finished because of their political proximity is benefiting from the one governor just finished. They are also the people receiving training by the regional body to collect laptops.
The same set of people.
So that, you know, and they should be able to probably use resources to help states to identify their demographics. Without data, you cannot achieve meaningful development. So this effort of the president, we should not sacrifice it at the altar, of politics. It must go beyond that to deliver governance to the people. Yeah.
I like the way you said it. These efforts by the president shouldn't be sacrificed on the altar of politics.
Absolutely.
But looking forward, do you expect to see a change in political dynamics? Already you've spoken regarding politics and how it can unfortunately have negative impact on on things like this. But I'd like to hear from you. Do you expect to see a change in political dynamics, maybe between the federal government and the regions, with the existing of this current ministries moving forward?
You see, the mistake we make in Nigeria is that we think regions exist. Regions exist politically in Nigeria today. Some of those people who came and agitate, regional this, regional that, our region this, is simply on the altar of politics. You understand? Because right now, all of us are citizens of Nigeria. And this is one effort because of division, conflict, the diversity in culture, political contestation. The president is now making this effort to say, okay, let us see how we devolve power to the regions through development intervention agencies or what have you. But if you look at the laws critically, there is no really any new burden, because from the one I have seen, it is the resources that are supposed to come to the state through ecological fund or other intervention, that a certain percentage were removed and put in the regional agencies as their statutory funding system. But again, for the optics, the regions will say, the presidency has given us something to rally around. Because you see, some regions, their governors have never agreed on the pathway to develop their area. They have had several economic summits, they never implemented one. They have had several security summits, they can't just come together and implement one. So maybe the regional bodies can become a rallying point that is able to bring governors together to say, this is what we should be able to do to develop our region. And I want it to be anchored on competitive advantages. What are those things that we have, natural resource, human resource, that we can harness using this regional body? That should be the focus, because if we are talking about food insecurity, economic hardship, social inequality, out of school children, regional bodies can be a driving force to bring about intervention that can help, address, because they don't have the humongous personnel that state government have because of politics. So they will be able to channel resources, for development. If we are saying industrialization, how many tech people do you want to produce as a region? In which area of the economic sectors do you want to play big? This is key. So if you have that, we focus on it. And then China is exporting people, personnel, manpower across the world. India is exporting, and many other countries. So within the country, things as long as plumbing. You remember the recent federal government policy regarding basic education, the skills you need to obtain. These are some of the things the region can also focus on, and see how maybe through the regions, schools can be built to reduce the number of out-of-school children. It will now become regional unity schools, things that can make people bond. But at the end of the day, we must all federalize and promote the vision of the country. Yeah.
Well said. But I will want for you to speak regarding the role that the private sector can play, in this big picture by the federal government, especially, supporting the ministry and ensuring that we are able to grow. You've spoken extensively on how we can grow investment in all of these regions. But what specific role can, the private sector play in, say, agriculture, in energy, in transportation, and the like?
So we can't do all of this without the private sector. Today in Nigeria, the intervention of the private sector is individualized. is disarticulated, is not coordinated. And the government is losing a lot, not bringing the private sector on board, so that if maybe, for instance, the corporate social responsibility, a lot of private sector people are intervening in maybe investment in the power sector, but they're intervening on their own, going through a lot. All that seem to, I was having a conversation with somebody. He said government can be sending people maybe to a plaza with 20 shops, maybe startups or businesses, to just give them demand notice. That is all they get from the government of their country or state or local government. They come the next month, that 20 shops are reduced to 10. They don't ask, why are these 10 businesses closed? They continue to bombard the remaining 10, with demand notice. And when they finish with that, until that whole plaza and the businesses they are closed, they move to another one. It's a terrible culture of developing a place. You must care about the private sector that is creating jobs. You must look at the kind of role they will play and the incentive they can get for playing that role. Maybe it's private sector, if they are properly brought into the system, when they maybe tie a road, do a scholarship program, they are able to get maybe this tax relief or maybe some kind of support from the government. That will encourage them to do a lot. And these regional bodies can also help in coordinating a process that allows corporate social responsibilities or investment interventions by private sector to have ease of doing business in achieving it. And I think that will help. And if all the interventions by the private sector are coordinated, we can put a rate to it. This is the amount of intervention. But whereby the relationship between government and the people is about the tax and levies you are owing, not about the welfare of your business that are employing citizens. That there need to be a shift of policy in that regard. Yeah.
You have spoken regarding the ease of doing business, but as we speak, the business environment in Nigeria, unfortunately, is not the most, conducive. And now we have, increased conversations around attracting foreign direct investment beyond capital cities, beyond Lagos, beyond Abuja, to, the in-totals now the regional areas across the nation. So what should be done to create that conducive environment to really see the results that we're trying to get? So
unfortunately, we act as if federal government is the only government that exists.
Oh, that's where the states come in now.
And that's where the state and local, because you see, it's not only in CAC that people register business. Local government have business registration units, and they give people certificate and receipt to operate in the market and what have you. The state government, under their different ministries, have also where you go and register your business. So there are people there who register depending on the level you're playing with the CAC, either a business name or what have you. So you cannot, for instance, create an enabling business environment from the federal government without a good integration that happens with the local government, the state, and the federal. For instance, the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Reform, Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform identified more than 200 and something taxes, different kinds of taxes.
Multiple taxation.
Being paid by Nigerians. And they said they are working with the state now and the local government to see if they can reduce those taxes to a single digit. And that confirms my point that the relationship between the government and businesses is just transactional. Is not support driven. Now, but the president has made an important decision. The lady, Dr. Chiamaka, who has been pioneering the Presidential Ease of Doing Business Council, is now the Minister for Trade and Investment. And the idea, that ministry focuses on trade facilitation, trade negotiations, investment drive, and what have you. And it's got agencies like SMEDAN and other ones under it. What we must now do is to change our approach. And the approach is that the citizens and the skilled people and unskilled people, they live in our rural communities. You cannot, from federal government, just land in my village and start implementing something. You may not probably get the right people. So let us see how all federal agencies, because this kind of massive agencies of government focusing on different kinds of things from federal level is actually making the state and local government weak and pretend that all of us are inside federal government. They divide their own resources, because we have had cases, allegedly, of where certain interventions of federal government are also captured in the budget of state and LGA, and we don't know what happened to the money. So we can clearly delineate, service portfolios and say, oh, in our governance system, this is what the local government should focus on. State, federal. At best, federal can do intervention. And when that intervention happens, it should be in collaboration with the local government and state. So maybe state project inspectorate unit, or however they are going to, or maybe with existing structure, because this is very critical if we are going to achieve, because federal government can create good business in every environment, go up in the business in every environment ranking, and the states are not doing the same, and the local government, there will not be any impact. Because people are not living in federal government. They are all living in states and local governments.
Well explained. And before we go, let's hear what your thoughts are on how this will impact on national unity.
Well, I think if they focus properly on the mandate of the regional bodies, it will bring about positive competitiveness. The centrifugal forces will reduce, and then we'll see centripetal forces, which is pulling of everybody together for the unity of the country. It is possible, I believe, that this can promote national unity, because people have agitated for it. Now it has happened. But the most critical aspect of it is to see that they fulfill the mandate of that office. Is to see that they focus on competitive, they should do new things, so that when they do it, they say, this is from Northwest Development Commission. Not the same kind of things being done. There should be research, there should be stakeholder engagement, community engagement, and they should also use it as a vehicle to spread national unity message. Very important, because if you say, because the regional bodies can also be weaponized as a running point to reinforce ethnic and nationality identity if they are not properly managed. That is a fact, where people compete and say, oh, this person, the law have already said, oh, this state should produce, after this state, next state, and what have you. This could be weaponized, and the development will be lost. At the same time, it could be a positive trend for building unity in the country.
Well said. Chibuzor Okereke, public affairs analyst, speaking extensively to, what could be derived, or the road ahead for the Federal Ministry of Regional Development, and what, can be done to fully harness the potentials from that ministry. Thank you very much for all the insights you shared with us on the program today. Thank you very much. And that's where we draw the curtains this morning, but keep the conversation going across all our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and of course on Instagram, and we'll be there to interact with you. Let's hear your thoughts. What is the way or the road ahead for the Ministry of Regional Development? My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.